We're back with the Ford Culture, and today we're talking about Bob Johnson and how he turned $500,000 into $3 billion. Now, for those who don't know, Robert L. Johnson, better known as Bob Johnson, was born April 8th, 1946 in Hickory, Mississippi. He's an American businessman, founder of Black Entertainment Television, and the first African-American majority owner of a major professional sports team in the United States. Johnson grew up in Freeport, Illinois, the ninth of 10 children. He majored in history at the University of Illinois, and after studying public affairs at Princeton University, he moved to Washington, D.C., where he worked for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and the National Urban League. He began cultivating valuable political and business connections that later helped him to bankroll his vision of creating a black-owned cable television network. As a lobbyist for the nascent cable industry from 1976 to 1979, he noticed that the large African-American TV audience was going unrecognized and untapped. When he was a cable company lobbyist, Johnson met John Malone, who at the time owned the third largest cable company in the United States. Malone told Johnson to come talk to him whenever he had an idea. The actual founding of BET took place in 35 minutes. Johnson brought his idea to Malone and asked for $500,000 in funding to start BET, a sum of money so large that it would have been incomprehensible to him just a few years before. Malone ended up putting down $180,000 in equity and a $320,000 loan, establishing himself as a 20% owner, with Johnson owning the other 80%. While Johnson eventually paid back the initial $320,000 loan, Malone never sold his initial BET shares, and when Viacom bought the company in 2003, he made a return of $700 million on his $180,000 equity investment. Malone made a profit, but ownership of BET made Johnson the first black billionaire. Johnson built BET from a tiny cable outlet, airing only 2 hours of programming a week in 1980, to a broadcasting giant that claimed an audience of over 70 million households. In 1991, BET became the first black-controlled company to be listed on the New York Stock Exchange. BET thrived in the 90s, adding more cable channels and expanding its reach through new film and publishing divisions, music channels, and a website. Viewership expanded along with the product line. While major media companies began to invest in the growing network, after taking BET private again in 1998, Johnson and his partner sold BET Holdings to the giant media group Viacom in 2001 for $3 billion. Though he remained at BET as its CEO until 2005, the sale made him the first African-American billionaire. Johnson then formed the umbrella group RLJ Companies, which operated widely in the media, sports, gaming, and real estate and hospitality industries. After attempting to purchase an NBA franchise throughout the 90s, Johnson was approved as the owner of an expansion team in Charlotte. The new team, called the Bobcats, began competition in 2004. Johnson's purchase of the franchise, estimated at $300 million, also included the Sting, the Women's National Basketball Association team in Charlotte as well. In 2006, Johnson transferred ownership of the Sting to the WNBA, and in 2010, he sold a majority stake in the Bobcats to Michael Jordan. In 2007, RLJ Companies, International Development and Humanitarian Aid Organization CHF International, and the U.S. Overseas Private Investment Corporation, an independent government agency created in 1971 to aid overseas investments and promote economic development in newly emerging markets, established the Liberian Enterprise Development Finance Company to promote investment and project development in Liberia. And there you have it, Bob Johnson, the first black American billionaire. More content on the way from the Ford Culture. We got plenty more stories to tell. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. I'll talk to you soon.